For the final word in sports all across the state, you're listening to Sports Talk with your hosts Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. You've been waiting all day. So join the show now by calling 800-956-7266.
Hey, good evening. Welcome into Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Hope you're doing better than a golfer in Eastern Long Island today. My goodness. The U.S. Open has become the war of attrition that the United States Golf Association has intended it to be treated. Let's just say there are not a lot of guys under par. In fact, only 5. Russell Henley of local import, -2, is your leader as he plays the 18th hole right now at Shinnecock Hills in Southampton, New York. Scott Piercy and Ian Poulter, the clubhouse lead currently. It could stand for only one more hole, though. They both shot 69 today. Dustin Johnson is through 14 at 1 under par. Jason Duffner is through 13, also 1 under par, but a lot of figures that are not red, a lot of solid figures that are basically on the plus side of par, including Tiger Woods, who has had a day of it, boy. He's had a triple, he's had a double, he's had a couple of singles, and no, those are bogeys, not birdies, Corn.
Yeah, tough start. I mean, we had all the hype about the super threesome at 147. And they go off the first tee, and Johnson and Thomas put it in the bunker, the greenside bunker, on their second shots. Tiger knocks it over the green into a very difficult area to recover from, and he did not recover well. Took him, I think, 3 shots to get it up on the green, finished with a triple on 1. Recovered a little bit, took another bogey on the next hole, I think it was, then recovered and sort of steadied the ship, but then picked up another double bogey, and things have kind of come unglued here of late for him on the backside.
+8 right now through 14. You mentioned that double bogey. He had that on 13. Justin Thomas is at +3 also in that group. And the other ones, too, that have been really, really bad. Jordan Spieth was 8 over. He shot 78. Phil Mickelson shot 79. He's 9 over for the tournament. And this one, nobody saw coming. Rory McIlroy, +10. He shot 80 today.
Well, we talked about the tournament earlier in the week, and I said, gee, I really wanted this thing to be penal. I wanted to see scores
penal
around even par, 1 or 2 over. And by God, we're going to get it. That place looks like a monster out there. The greens don't look good. I can't tell if it's just the coloring, or they're not Chambers Bay like, because those greens were absolutely despicable. But I will find out from George Bryan later in the show his take on all this, as he's watching it very closely. Wesley's not in it, but still George is obviously watching it very closely and can give us an expert's take on it. It just looks like a devil of a layout, and it's not helping that the wind is up a little bit and causing some havoc there. I think some of the golfers having a hard time with distance and club selection and things of that nature. I do want to give a shout out to my man Scott Gregory, who shot 92 today. Woo! So, you got to identify with that. I just want to say, I know what it looks like to see +22. Actually, 92, I would give a lot to shoot 92.
You'd give your left arm for 92.
Well, not just at that course. I mean, look, this guy could go out and probably, break par most anywhere in the world. Just today at this course, it wasn't going to happen. But +22, that's a kick in the teeth for a professional golfer in the Open.
That's a kid, too. He's a young buck, is he not, Scott Gregory? I believe he's young.
I would think so. I haven't heard much
he's from
about
England.
him.
He's from England.
Yeah,
so.
He's not from over here.
Yeah, so he's got an uphill battle to make the cut. If you know anything, and I misspoke earlier. Mickelson shot 77. I gave him 2 more strokes than he actually earned today, so only 7 over par. Only 7.
Let's talk about some of the other state guys so far. Kyle Stanley, who is off to a pretty good start. He's +5 through 14. Bill Haas is +6. He's in the clubhouse, 76. Probably feeling pretty good about that.
Yes, he feels probably a lot better about that than he did earlier today.
Lucas Glover is +7. As he just finished playing his 15th hole. He started on the back. And Kevin Kisner is +8 through 12 holes today. Did you mention Jordan Spieth? He's in at 78. I'm going to tell you, though, I mean, anything under 80 is probably going to look okay because the lead's going to hover around 1 or 2 under par.
Right.
I would imagine, unless somebody really gets hot here down the stretch. Henley's playing the last, and he's 2 under. DJ is playing 14. He's 2 under. It's probably not going to move a whole lot more from that. So if you know what, if you shoot 80 or under, you're going to feel okay about it.
Well, here's the thing, and we talked about this a little bit earlier. The geography of Long Island is such it is not a very wide island, north and south. It is wide west to east. And the way that golf course sits, it sits on basically the South Fork of Long Island, and it's a very, very thin part of it, of the island. And looks like Russell Henley has just dropped the stroke to go back to 1 under par.
And so did DJ.
And DJ is about to do the same, has done the same as well. He has done the same. So the lead now at -1. But yeah, it's such a thin part of the island. So you basically have bay on either side. So you have the wind that comes off of that, plays tricks with you, plays tricks with your swing. And oh, by the way, the rain last night made the greens kind of, obviously saturated a little bit. So you didn't get as much run a lot of that time as well. So from that perspective, Shinnecock has played devilish today.
But it doesn't look like, from what I've been able to watch, and I've been in and out most of the day. Now here's a nice shot by Duffner on a run up, but see, look at it rolling off. There's not a lot of grip on the greens. The greens, despite the rain, the greens look very hard. The shots just aren't sticking.
It's because they probably put that little suction underneath there. They were talking about. Where were they talking about? Is that at Augusta? They have the suction underneath the. Maybe they have that same thing with Shinnecock. And it's funny, this is such an old course. It was the first basically country club, if you will, in America. It's the oldest clubhouse in America, and they've only played the U.S. Open here 5 or 6 times. So it's been redesigned about 3 or 4 different times, and it's taken a
so you're
real
telling me
life
it's older than my home course that I grew up and
yes,
learned the game under the watchful eye of
1890
the golf pro
1891
Dillon County Country Club.
1891 was when this golf club was
also known as Twin Lakes Country Club, where I shot my best round ever. 76.
Exactly.
Of course, I was playing by myself, so you can imagine.
You have no witness, witnesses.
There were no witnesses to a few. I admit I did have a couple of foot birdies in there. Other than that, it was pretty straight. Pretty straight.
Of course, we have a lot to get to today on the program. Mike Morgan will join us 6:30 for his usual Thursday spot with us. We'll also talk to the money coach, Fran Halloran, and we're going to talk to a guy who made some waves on the national scene, basically related to this new transfer rule and the new redshirt rule. Nicholas Clark, who's a recent graduate and former football player at Coastal Carolina, he's representing the Division I Student Athlete Advisory Committee on the council. He said that the rule changes that were enacted yesterday about the NCAA. We talked about it with Davos Sweeney, and we'll continue to talk about it today. And you can also weigh in on it at 800-956-7266. That's how you get in touch with us, your Palmetto Sports Connection here on Sports Talk. Nicholas is going to join us at 7:20, and I'm curious to see not just about that, Corn, but about some of the other reforms he and the fellow players and recent graduates are looking for from the NCAA to try and make things more suitable for them.
I would think from a player standpoint, he's got to feel really good.
Sure.
Because now it's like, hey, the parents in the room are finally listening to us.
Right.
We've been clamoring for this kind of stuff, this kind of relief for a long, long time. And now they're finally listening. The only thing that they don't want to hear is pay me. And as long as the student athletes continue to be satisfied in all these other ways, then maybe they can somehow live together harmoniously here. Wow, I still think that as a college athlete at a big-time school, you get a lot of stuff. People, it irks me when reporters refer to the athletes who are on scholarship as not being paid. They are being paid. They're just getting paid in ways that just don't put money in their hands. I mean, a full scholarship, college education, all the trimmings that come with that, and they're getting stipends. They're getting cost of living stipends, et cetera, et cetera. Could they take their talents on the open market at that age and go to a pro league and make more? Sure. Open it up. Let them try it. If they fail there, then they can go get a real job. So don't tell me they don't get paid, because they do. I
have some comments to respond to that. We'll do that when we come back, and we'll do some more here on Sports Talk, including a big award for a Gamecock football player.
This is the place to talk Tigers, Gamecocks, and more. Sports talk across the state on the South Carolina Radio Network.
He has put himself in the clubhouse trio now with Scott Piercy and Ian Poulter tied at -1 for the first round lead of the 118th United States Open. Dustin Johnson is still on the course at 1 under par. He could probably make a bid for the clubhouse lead here, trying to win his second Open in 3 years. You had a couple of preview notes for our recruiting segment you wanted to highlight, sir?
Yeah, and let me just touch on Dustin real quick. You know, unlike the guys with him in his group, he got off to a pretty good start. He parred the first 3 holes. Then he went birdie before he bogeyed 6, and he birdied 8. So a pretty good front 9 for him at 33. Now he's had a couple of bogeys and 1 birdie on the backside, but he's been pretty steady, and he's held it together well while others around him have struggled under the conditions at Shinnecock today. So he is showing more and more growth in his game. You know, he's becoming more than just a long ball hitter off the tee. His approach shots and his touch on the green, so much better than it was a few years ago. I got a feeling if he wins this Open, wins this championship to give him 2 majors and 2 U.S. Opens, you might see him get on one of those Tiger-like dominating roles,
yes,
you know, because his game is becoming now more complete.
This hole that they're playing right now is 620 yards, and it's got catcher's mitt bunkers through basically every landing spot. This is not even fair. And you have to land it in an area that might be 20 feet wide.
And Tiger just smoked it.
He did.
Just hit one of the best drives he's hit.
That might be one of the best ones he's had all day.
Recruiting coming up a little bit later on. USC gets a baseball commitment. Actually came down earlier this week. A junior college shortstop. We'll tell you about him and update things happening out of the 2 camps. Spencer Lytle wrapped up his visit to Clemson and Wisconsin. Now his top 2. He's not going to visit Notre Dame this weekend. It looks like it'll be the Tigers or the Badgers for him. He spent a couple of days at Clemson. USC's got a small but important weekend ahead. Ryan Helinski is back in Columbia for his visit. Chris Steele is coming in for an official. We're going to tell you more about Jadon Hill, who's coming in for an official as well. All that coming up a little bit later on in recruiting.
One award came out today. This is, again, kind of the dead period when it comes for news, but sometimes the SEC.
But you know what? This is a nice award.
The SEC and the ACC sometimes sprinkle these awards throughout the summer to give us something to talk about. This is a very, very good thing from their perspective. South Carolina quarterback Jake Bentley was awarded the SEC's Sportsmanship Award, and he was named basically because of the situation that happened. And if you remember the Tennessee game, South Carolina had a 15-9 lead with about a minute and change to play. Jarrett Garantano, or Garantino, depending on whatever name that Todd Ellis was calling him at that time during the game, threw a couple incomplete passes to end the game, and of course sat dejected on the sidelines there at the end. And do you remember the scene of him getting picked up there by Jake Bentley after walking across and celebrating with his teammates? He ended up going over to Garantano and saying, "Hey, you know, it's okay, good game," and all that stuff. And that resonated not only with folks across the country, but inside the conference office. Yeah,
it's a great award and well deserving. I mean, listen, say what you want about Jake the quarterback, and that's not all that bad. But Jake the person, off the field and in the locker room and all that, is an A+ individual. You know, he's grounded. He is appropriately humble. He is a leader and apparently a great teammate, and he leads by example. You know, it's not just his words. He is a guy that certainly leads by example. I remember the very moment you're talking about. I was at that Tennessee game, yes, and I remember that moment. And those are the things in sport that you see that make you really love sports, because it's not, you know, it was unrehearsed. It wasn't planned. It's something that kind of captured the moment for both young men. Here's a quarterback in Bentley trying to establish himself with a team trying to establish itself. He leads them to a road victory. And then here's a young man at Tennessee, a struggling program. And he's trying to establish himself as their quarterback, who struggled through that ball game and couldn't lead his team to a victory. So the emotions were running high both ways. And for Bentley to, he's been there, obviously. He knows what it's like. He was humbled in his first year when they went up to Clemson and got slaughtered, and he was removed from the game. He was just totally ineffective. He knows what it's like to be in that situation. It says a ton about him to reach out to somebody in that setting to try to make him feel better and to give him some words of encouragement.
It's interesting. It reminded me, and this was something that happened recently. You've seen this video that's been going around here. It was a state championship baseball game where a young man struck out a batter to end a ball game. It was a not a national championship, but a state championship type game. And apparently the pitcher and the batter were friends growing up or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And right after he strikes out the young man, the pitcher comes, instead of going and dogpiling with his teammates on the field and by the pitcher's mound, he runs right to the plate and hugs the kid.
Yeah.
And it's literally one of the most chilling things you could probably watch just from that standpoint, just because you don't expect it.
Yeah.
And Jake Bentley did the exact same thing. Let's go to the phones, 800-956-7266. Glenn is calling us from North Charleston. Glenn, you're on Sports Talk. How are you?
Speaking of great sportsmen.
What's up, Glenn?
Well, thank y'all. Not much, but
we want to award you. We want to award
you
you with the first Sports Talk Sportsmanship of the Year award for being just such a great sport.
Hey, that's great. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
But
you don't get anything, but
want to say, hey, it means a great deal to me, but I appreciate the honor. But the River Dogs sure ain't going to get no game on tonight. It's going to be a long game. And if they do, it's going to be a 2 or 3 a.m. game.
Is it raining down there?
The way it's
Yeah.
still raining down here. So, it's a good weekend for the River Dogs. We're getting like Champ 5 event tomorrow night. And I think they got a Champ 4 event tonight. So, it was going to be a good game. Too bad you're not down here, Mr. Corn.
Yeah, Corn, I was surprised you didn't go down there for Aaron Judge tape measure giveaway on Wednesday.
Sorry. That would be cool.
I missed that.
Have you been affected by the Wando Bridge closing there, Glenn?
Every day I have to wait 3 hours to get home almost.
Do you really? It's taking that long?
Yes, sir.
You haven't heard about this?
Yes, sir.
Well, yeah, of course. I knew that they were having problems, and I knew they had reversed some lanes to try to ease the problem, but I hadn't checked in on it in a little while.
Still bad.
Oh, it's real.
Well, it was bad before they had the problem. Jerome is the one that broke the bridge. I don't know if you heard him earlier this week, so you can blame him. He broke the bridge and caused this entire problem.
He knows,
I had to cancel plans in a lot of country as a result of the bridge thing. I'm afraid to go down there now, and that's the thing. I'm wondering if this is a thing, and well, is it just on 526 or is it bleeding over onto 26 and then into downtown? There's only a couple of ways in.
Usually gridlock. It's usually gridlock, but it's been repaired, so it's a little better right now. So things are slow too because everybody's gone on vacation. So
it wouldn't be a problem for me because, I would take my motorcade into Charleston and they would just wave us on through.
I thought you take the Sports Talk chopper and land it.
Could do that.
Landed at Patriots Point.
Could do that. Could do that. But it's getting maintenance right now, so it's getting some new blades and new engine.
Right in for your trip out to Vegas next week.
I might need that thing to get me out of Vegas.
You might need it to get out of Vegas, especially if say your bets don't go as well.
True that.
Lowest round, by the way, in a major with a double bogey for Russell Henley.
15 fairways hit. That's the way you do it. You put the ball in the fairway, you're going to have a chance.
Well, how terrible do you have to feel if you hit 15 fairways and all you can muster is 69?
That tells you what the course is. That tells you how tough it is on those greens and around those greens.
Henrik Stenson's gotten one back to go to +1. He is 2 off the lead with 3 holes left to play. 4 players tied at 1 under par right now for the lead. Poulter, Henley, as well as Dustin Johnson, and also Russell Henley and Scott Piercy. Also, those 4. That was the one I was trying to think of, Scott Piercy. Mike Morgan will join us for his weekly spot with us coming up next here on Sports Talk.
Best music compilation.
Hello, Moto. You in a Moto G6, in a G6. You in a Moto G6.
Yeah, I tripped, I stumbled, fell lost in disgrace. Got myself caught up in your grace. Thought I loved you, but I was on it. In love with your face, took off the mask. You showed me your dark days.
Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. We understand. We understand. Brian thinks we didn't know we were on the air. He thinks that we thought we were just, chillaxing.
So he thinks we nap like he does during the show. We don't take naps during the show, Brian, okay? We're active.
It is time for our conversation, our weekly conversation with Mike Morgan of ESPN SEC Network fame. He joins us here on Sports Talk as he does every week, as he is brought to you by Founders Federal Credit Union. Check out foundersfcu.com and learn how they can assist you in all of your financial needs. And by BP Skinner Clothing, as people nationwide get their custom-made suits and accessories from Brent Skinner, the best in suits, shirts, pants, shoes, and more, available to you, located in the Vista in Columbia. Brent will come to you as well, wherever the heck you might be. bpskinnerclothiers.com. Set up an appointment with him.
Good to have Mike with us here as we approach the big fortnight for college baseball, also known as the College World Series in Omaha. And Mike, our listeners here on Sports Talk who have participated in our poll question, who will win the CWS, 35% are picking Arkansas, 27% are picking Oregon State. Do they know of what they speak?
I think they do, actually. At the beginning of the year, you asked me who I thought the best team was going to be. I said Arkansas, and you sounded like I had a third eye when I said it. I think Arkansas is as good as any team in the field. I think they've kind of flew under the radar a little bit early, and in a lot of people's minds has surpassed Florida in terms of overall consistent dominance, in terms of what they've been able to do. Look, Florida had to go to a 7th game to win their regional at home. They had to go to a 3rd game to win their super regional at home. And who knows, if the right fielder for Auburn doesn't have a ball bounce out of his glove over the fence for a walk-off, Florida might not even be there. They're still loaded. Arkansas is still very good. To me, those are the top 2 teams, along with Oregon State, talent-wise. But I gave up handicapping Omaha a long time ago because rarely does it happen the way we think it's going to happen.
Yeah, saw that with the Gamecocks the first time they won it. I don't think anybody expected South Carolina to run through there, and a team can get hot and win the whole thing. You were at the Texas Tech Super Regional. You give Texas Tech a boxer's chance to win this thing?
I give a little more than that because I love their offense and because it's the 3rd time in 5 years they've been there. So, the first time for a lot of programs, you're just happy to be there. And sure enough, they went 2-Q. The second time, they went 1-2. I think this time they can do a little more damage. I'm not in love with their starting pitching. The strength of their staff is really more so their bullpen. But man, oh man, that offense can rake. 1 through 9, it's as good as any offense out there. So you probably said it best, a puncher's chance, because I don't think they're going to shut a lot of teams out, but I do think they can score a good amount of runs against anybody they meet.
Oregon State is a team we've talked about over the last couple of weeks, Mike, obviously with the unfortunate sideshow involving Luke Heimlich that has kind of followed them. How much do you think that they have used that as a motivating factor, and how much of his presence do you think will help them this week?
Well, I don't know if I'd say it was a motivating factor. I think they've tried to downplay that story as much as possible, and I know from being in meetings and on conference calls with the very network that's going to cover this event, it will be brought up. It's not going to be completely ignored. It's an uncomfortable story not only for him and for Oregon State. I can tell you it's an uncomfortable story for everybody at ESPN. Mm-hmm. When you're calling these type of games, you don't want to have to get into that kind of story. It makes all of us feel uncomfortable. There's nothing that is necessarily gained by it, yet you can't completely ignore it. So it'll be brought up early. I don't think it'll be brought up repeatedly. But I think if you're Oregon State, you've had to deal with this story now for 2 years. So I think by now they're all used to it, and they're not going to be caught off guard by it. I think it would have been much more difficult last year to have to handle this in Omaha than this year.
Morgan on the move. Mike Morgan with us here on Sports Talk. College World Series beginning this weekend. Should be fun. Always is a lot of fun out in Omaha. And let's shift gears a little bit and start looking ahead to football. SEC Media Days just a few weeks down the road. Moving to Atlanta. Going to test it out there and looking forward to seeing how all that works out. But as far as looking ahead to the season, and we'll be talking a lot more with you about this as the season approaches and we get into the season, but there's a lot of people nationally starting to identify South Carolina as a potential spoiler in the East.
Yeah, I think that's become kind of a chic pick, if you will. Look, everybody's going to pick Georgia, but somebody's got to finish second in that division, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't know if people have enough confidence in Florida's quarterbacking situation, in Tennessee's quarterbacking situation. No confidence in Kentucky or Vanderbilt or Missouri to compete. So who does that leave? It leaves the team with a 3-year starter or 2.5, whatever it is, at quarterback. A familiar face at running back, a familiar face at wide receiver. You lose a great tight end, but there's a lot of name recognition, and it just feels like outside of that bubble, which you guys can certainly, it's more palpable for you being there, but from an outside point of view, it just seems like Will Muschamp has everything going in the right direction. And so I think you'll see a lot of people jump on that pick for them to be second place when the voting is done, and some people might even pick an upset against Georgia. That wouldn't shock me either.
Well, it's weird. There have been some people, Mike, who have said, South Carolina might win that game against Georgia, but might slip up as far as it goes down the stretch, just because of the way that their schedule fits. Do you think that that's probably a possibility in the fact that they might win that swing game, but trip up down the stretch?
Well, yeah, I mean, that goes back to, the Spurrier Mark Richt days, right? Where South Carolina was able to beat Georgia multiple times, but at the end of the day, Georgia was able to get to Atlanta. So I could see where that could be a possibility. Look, Georgia should win this division. And I think most people think Georgia is closer to Alabama than South Carolina is close to Georgia. I think that's what most people think. We'll find out once the season starts, but I think the Gamecocks are going to be a very popular pick. Not just forget about the division for a moment. Just looking at it from where the program is and where they're heading, they can easily not win the division and still be considered a program that is continually making the right steps forward and moving back to a really good place. And that's credit to Will Muschamp, and I think that's good for an Eastern division that, my goodness, at some point the East has to be better. I mean, it has been the varsity versus the JV, and Georgia alone is not going to fix that. Other programs are going to have to be good. That includes Tennessee. Tennessee has to be relevant again in college football. Florida has to be good again in college football. All these things have to happen if the East is going to be on par with the West. Otherwise, it's going to be the same old story where the SEC is really more about the Western Division, and we'll pluck out one team from the East to play in Atlanta. And at the end of the day, it'll be Alabama taking home the trophy.
All right, 1 minute to go. Your 1 minute warning. So the new NCAA ruling yesterday allowing transfers without any blocking by the schools. Potential chaos ahead, or all good?
I'm okay with it. I don't think the school should have that decision. I've never had an issue with the sitting out for 1 year policy. Because I'd always worried about mass defections. Kids are more eager now to just kind of quit and I'm not getting what I want, so I'm going to go somewhere else type of deal. But the fact that a coach that has the kid under his watch, for him to be able to block the kid, I've never liked that. I've never thought that was fair. And I also like the other rule about being able to play 4 games and not having to burn a year there. I think those are actually 2 moves in the right direction. I think the NCAA is actually making some progress and being a little more of a equitable organization, dare I say.
Mike, we appreciate it. Have yourself a great Father's Day, except you're not a dad that we know of, and the dog is
I'm a
dead.
dad of a beautiful Boston Terrier.
Oh, you got a new dog. That's right. The old one's gone.
The old one's gone, but Baxter says thank you.
Recruiting next here on Sports Talk.
Now back to Sports Talk, South Carolina's most listened to sports talk show for more than 30 years.
Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Couple of odds and ends we want to work in here. By the way, Seth Beer officially signing his contract yesterday. He reports today to the Tri-City Valley Cats up in Troy, New York. MLB.com reporting that he got a signing bonus, very nice signing bonus of about $2.25 million. A little bit underneath the slot value of his pick, but still, I think he's happy about that.
But then again, I saw where the Gamecock recruit, the USC signee, I got to pull his name up here, so give me a second.
Owen White?
No, keep going.
Taj Bradley?
The other, I think it was Taj Bradley.
Yes.
He signed for way over slot.
Really?
Yeah. He got a nice bonus.
Well, because he has probably a little bit more leverage. See, this is the stupid thing about the baseball draft that I don't like. And
well, Beer had another year. He could come back to school for another year if he wanted to.
but he's not improving his draft status that much, honestly. Like, how much more can he earn from 26 or it was 28th overall, right? How much more can he get from 28 on up? I don't know if you can get more, especially because you lose a year.
Well, nobody's gonna blame him for taking the money now. But when you think about it, if he wanted to come back and he had that, if he raised his batting average to say 350 and kept the power numbers and the on base percentage up, and Clemson had another big year, he might find himself being drafted in the top 5 or the top 10. I was surprised he went as late as he did, but what do I know? He has a beautiful swing. He's, tremendous all-around player, as a versatile player in terms of where you can play him, some at first maybe or in the outfield, and been called one of the best hitters in college baseball the last 3 years. His consistency is – look at his power numbers since the day he walked on campus.
We don't see a lot of guys. I mean, we see 4-year juniors get drafted out of that spot, especially in the pitching, but you don't see a lot of seniors who get that far up there. From that standpoint, you don't see a guy who was a senior coming out of college.
Well, the senior doesn't have the negotiating power.
Right.
That's why
they don't get pick time.
But what I'm saying is right, and that can be held against you. But if he comes back and has that kind of super year that he is capable of having, like off the charts, he'd still go. I don't think they would use that against him from a selection standpoint. Now negotiating wise, again, I mean, if he had no other alternative, then they could actually just go with slot and say that's all we're giving you.
Yeah.
By the way, he was named first team All-American by D1 today. D1 baseball.
Very nice.
Named him first team.
And the other thing too about that is he has to prove that he can swing the wood bats. That's the one thing we talked about kind of in the aftermath of that selection. It was the thing that was all over MLB.com about whether or not he could swing the wood bats versus the pings.
But don't they all have to prove that?
Well, yeah,
but all the college guys have to prove that.
But a lot of them, they play these summer tournaments and these wood bat leagues where they get exposure. And apparently his first exposure to that was not good. So that from that standpoint, and again, I don't know if South Carolina or Clemson have done this, but there are some places where they have in the past played exhibition games with wood bats. I don't know if that's something that Carolina or Clemson have ever done.
Not that I can think of. Not since they've gone to the whatever it is they call it now, the composite bats, whatever they have in there.
Recruiting, sir.
Yes, got a lot of recruiting. Shall we do it?
We shall.
Let's get to it then. We begin with a few updates. Defensive back Shaheem Battle of Rocky Mount, North Carolina, back at Clemson yesterday for a camp. Another chance to meet up with the coaches and gauge them and let them gauge him. Feels like he impressed the coaches once again. This remains a Clemson-NC State battle, and he said Clemson wants him to return for the cookout in late July. He said Mike Reed was suggesting that they'd love him to jump on the board with the Tigers, wanted him to kind of go ahead and commit, but he told him he's taking his time right now, getting these visits in and things like that. He went to NC State today. He's going to North Carolina on Saturday, and he might try and work in a visit to Ohio State. But he said right now 50-50, Clemson, NC State. Right now he's got December 15th for his commitment announcement. Defensive back Jadon Hill of Madison, Alabama, was at Tennessee Sunday. He was at Clemson for a camp on Wednesday. This weekend, he'll be at USC, arriving tomorrow. He did well at Clemson's camp Wednesday, and the Tigers have not offered him, but they said they'd keep in touch. He does have a USC offer, and the Gamecocks want him as a cornerback. He talks to Travaris Robinson a lot, and Will Muschamp is also in touch with him as well. They've told him, according to him, that he is one of the top guys they want in the class, and he loves what Robinson and Muschamp have done in developing defensive backs in their coaching careers over the years. Right now, USC and Tennessee are neck and neck. Recent visit to Rocky Top went well, he said, looking at sometime in August for making his decision, though he did say this weekend a commitment is a possibility. He will be joined on the visit by his trainer, who Hill said played for Muschamp and Robinson. Hanahan's Cooper Dawson, 6'5", 245, was at Dabo Swinney's camp last week as a defensive end. Unfortunately for him, he suffered a ACL injury. He's waiting on the results of an MRI to come back tomorrow. So the Tigers liked him a lot, and they called and offered him as an offensive tackle.
So now if you get hurt at one of these camps, does the school take care of you insurance-wise, or I
don't know.
You are
on your own?
On your own.
I don't know how that works out. I'm sure you have to sign all kind of release papers
yeah.
and things like that.
Oof.
Anyway, he said Tony Elliott called and told him that Swinney wanted to talk to him, and they talked, and they told him about the offer as an offensive lineman, not as a defensive end. And so that's something he's got to think about as well. Does he want to make the move to the offensive side? He does have offers as well from Colorado State, Coastal Carolina, Appalachian, Army, Navy, UCF, and Old Dominion. He is not going to rush into a decision at this point. 2020 defensive end Reggie Grimes of Mount Juliet, Tennessee, was offered by Clemson while at camp today. Westwood defensive back Cam Smith today landed an offer from Georgia. Boy, his stock has gone way, way up.
Yeah. Georgia offers everybody, and they get everybody too.
Running back Taj Gary of Atlanta was in at USC today. USC is one of his top 8 schools. Athlete Jalon Calhoun of Southside picked up offers from Georgia Tech and Charlotte. He'll compete at USC 7-on-7 tomorrow. Clemson offered 2020 quarterback DJ Ugalele, Bellflower, California, when he was at camp. Came in last night and worked out again today. Georgia offered him on Tuesday. He also went to Alabama on this trip. Clemson, however, apparently made a very strong impression on him. Looks like the Tigers and Oregon will be very strong factors with him. Clemson also offered 2020 linebacker Savell Smalls of Seattle. He was in at their camp on Wednesday. Defensive back Johnny Dixon of Tampa will visit USC officially this weekend, and he has offers from USC, Alabama, Miami, Ohio State, and Penn State, among others. And let's see. USC, former USC commitment linebacker Adarius G. committed to Georgia Tech today. USC target offensive lineman Anthony Wiggin, Lackawanna Junior College in Pennsylvania, was offered by Oklahoma. USC target defensive back Jamie Robinson was at Georgia for a visit yesterday. USC and Clemson target running back linebacker Quavaris Crouch of Charlotte reportedly was to visit Tennessee on Wednesday. And in baseball, USC landed a commitment this week from shortstop Quentin Perez of Hancock Junior College in California. This season, he hit .367, 12 doubles, 3 homers, 18 RBIs, stole 10 out of 12, committed 13 errors in 31 games for a .906 fielding percentage. And, of course, got a chance to come right in and take over the shortstop job, assuming that LT Tolbert goes ahead and signs, as they expect him to do.
They have a junior college guy coming in as well to possibly fill that void as well. That guy, Ugalele, by the way, high school teammate of one Chris Steele, who's here this weekend.
Yes, and also a teammate of the linebacker that Clemson is recruiting out of California. Did I mention him?
You might have.
You know what? I don't think I did. Let me pull my notes up on him real quick.
I don't know if you mentioned that.
While we're getting to the top of the hour.
We will come back. We will talk a little bit more. And also, you have it?
Yeah, Spencer Lytle.
Yes.
Linebacker who was in at Clemson the last couple of days. We'll have a more detailed story up on him later tonight, but he tells us that it's Clemson and Wisconsin as his top 2. Canceled a visit to Notre Dame for this weekend. Hopes to have a decision by by August 1st.
A major college coach had shade thrown on him by his athletic director in public. We explain. Top of the hour next.
Round 2 of Sports Talk up next with your hosts Phil Kornblut, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show, 800-956-7266.
Welcome back, Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network, here on this Thursday, the 14th day of July, 2018. Will Pelagic, Phil Kornblut. Professor Tom Hayes has the evening off. I will do so tomorrow. So the state of South Carolina
How do y'all get days off? And I have to stay here and work. Me and Brian have to work every stinking night on this show.
Seriously, we're gonna talk. We're gonna talk about days off here. Is that what we're doing?
Oh, are you suggesting?
Is that what we're talking about right now?
Oh, okay.
Is that what we're talking about?
All right. So you're gonna hold Passover against me, huh? Just because I take off to go eat matzah.
We're off last Friday.
That's true.
Yeah, we're off last Friday.
That was a family thing. You're gonna hold family against me too? Okay. So you guys are all for your pleasure. See, mine was not necessarily for pleasure.
It's called a mental health day, Corn.
Okay. You can certainly use that.
Something we millennials invented.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
I get it.
Dustin Johnson is on the 18th hole right now. He needs to save par in order to get himself in the tie for the clubhouse lead at the first round of the U.S. Open. Scott Piercy, Ian Poulter, Russell Henley all shot 69s and are in the clubhouse ahead of him. Jason Duffner is at even par, still on the course. He has got 2 holes to play. Henrik Stenson is at +1, also about to play his 18th hole. He played the back 9 to start. He is on hole number 9.
And a few of the others, locally, Kevin Kisner's moved up a little bit. He's got it to +7. As he plays his 17th hole. Lucas Glover finished with a 77. That's +7. Bill Haas is in at 6 over. That's a 76. Kyle Stanley is +4 through 17. He's playing, should be playing the 18th or right around there now. So, again, if you break 80 today, because the lead's going to be -1, maybe, well, it's not going to be any greater than -1. You break 80, if you're in 76, 77, 78, you're going to feel like, you know what, I'm still in this thing.
I would like to think so, if you are, just because it's the fact that you have no idea what the weekend's going to hold. You know how the USGA is going to tinker with the course, tinker with the pin placements, because they will use the first day as kind of a blueprint, almost kind of like a throwaway day, just to see what happens. Sometimes you have guys who will throw up a low number, or a couple guys will do that, but it's playing according to form, or at least according to the form that they wanted to. And again, I must have misremembered this from 2004, because I remember the USGA not being very happy with the way Shinnecock was. Or for some reason they were not happy with the layout of the figure. There were only a couple of guys who finished under par. The winner of that was Retief Goosen, and it was at -4, and Phil was at -2. So it wasn't like they could have been upset with the scores. Am I misremembering that?
I don't remember.
I'll have to ask George when he joins us at 7:45. Later on this hour, money coach Fran Halloran will join us coming up at 7:30. Nicholas Clark, former Coastal Carolina football player and part of the Division I Student Athlete Advisory Committee, will join us to talk about the new transfer and redshirt rules.
DJ makes the putt, so he's in at 1 under 69, 4-way tie for the lead at 1 under.
So this is a story that came out today, a podcast. See, again, this is where these athletes get in trouble with these podcasts now. A podcast interview with Oklahoma State Athletic Director Mike Holder. He said this about his head coach, Mike Gundy. You got to give a lot of credit to Mike Gundy. He's really matured into a difference maker as a coach. I would approach recruiting a little differently than he does. I would want to finish up higher in those recruiting rankings than we consistently do. I think that ultimately puts a ceiling on what you're able to achieve. I'm going to let you just go right ahead, because I'm sure you probably think this is a bunch of hogwash.
I think that's a bunch of hogwash. And I can't believe an athletic director would allow himself to be quoted in that manner. I mean, that is really lowering yourself into an area of conversation that you don't need to be in, to say that, boy, I want to see my, Gundy could come back and say, okay, well, you know what? How about some bonuses here for where we finish in recruiting? And you start, bonusing me here in the recruiting rankings, and I can get that done, because you know how? All it takes to improve your recruiting ranking is to pick up the phone and call your local Rivals reporter or your local 24/7, whoever covers you from those websites, massage them a little bit, give them some information, threaten to cut them off. you'll see those numbers go up.
Well,
believe me.
Gundy's not exactly a personable guy. He's kind of a little fiery. You remember that situation with Jim Carlson?
How has his teams been in the last few years? How have his teams been in the last few years?
They are not – they're not bad by any means.
Well, he had a great quarterback that, got passed over here in state, went out there and became one of the greatest quarterbacks, if not the greatest quarterback in Oklahoma State history. And so, they've always, under Gundy, have always been a competitive football team, and at times have challenged for the Big 12 championship and national consideration.
10 wins each of the last 3 years. 10-3, 10-3, 10-3. Lost in the Sugar Bowl in 15, winning the Alamo Bowl in 16. I was there, and winning in the Camping World Bowl this past year. Before that, he was 7-6. Before that, 10-3, 8-5, 12-1. I'm not seeing any. The only season he had that he wasn't bowl eligible was his first year. I know that's not necessarily the best barometer, but he's had double-digit win seasons in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the last 8 seasons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
again, you're asking for trouble if you start hanging everything on rankings. For example, and this is, in my opinion, this is no reflection on the kid at all. Okay, because I don't subscribe to recruiting rankings, star rankings whatsoever.
Right.
But Clemson offered the young man from Hanahan we were talking about, Dawson, and he was referred to as a 2-star.
Right.
Now, here you are, you're Clemson, okay? You recruit coast to coast. You can attract the best players in the country, and you can get commitments from many of the best players in the country. Why would you offer a player that the recruiting networks consider to be a 2-star, whatever a 2-star means in their definition? Because you, as a football coach, you're Robbie Caldwell at Clemson and you're Dabo Swinney, you see a guy that you can take and develop and you believe can become an outstanding offensive tackle for you a few years down the road. And so just because a player is labeled a certain way doesn't mean he's going to become that type of player. 5-star players coming out of high school flame out and don't do anything for you. Lower ranked players who aren't given much consideration develop and become great players for you.
I have some more numbers on them. They, just to use rivals, over the last 10 years, their average class ranking has been 34th or 35th nationally, somewhere in between there. That puts them right in the middle of the pack of the Big 12. This is something else that the athletic director, Mike Holder, said in the podcast. He said, we do a great job of overcoming our recruiting rankings where they are by our strength coach down in the weight room. We think our coaches do a great job of disciplining and motivating and challenging the talent we have, what talent we have, in the right direction. Man, this is so shady.
Yeah.
I just think we'd be better served with a few more James Washingtons coming in the front door. He came in as a 2-star or a 3-star recruit and left as a 5-star. We need to take some of those 5 stars and turn them into 7 stars, which is what I think our strength coach can do, and I think Mike Gundy could as well. That's so bad.
Yeah,
you can see why
really throwing your coaching staff under the bus and backing it up over them.
Now, was Holder wasn't there? I believe I don't think he was there. Well, he's been at Oklahoma State for decades. Became AD during Gundy's first year as a head coach, so he was there when Brad Underwood left. And again, a lot of that had to do, I think, with some of the stuff that got the assistant coach in trouble. But at the same time, it's like, why would anybody want to work there?
Yeah.
If this is the guy that is your boss.
I hate to hear an AD give that kind of credence to recruiting rankings. That's not healthy. You hear coaches all the time, from Muschamp to Swinney and all others, who say, we don't pay any attention to recruiting rankings. We identify prospects, we evaluate them during their seasons and in our camps, and then we make our decision whether or not to offer, and then whether or not to accept a commitment if a player wants to commit.
Mike Gundy took the high road on Twitter. He put out a 2-emoji response. He did the putting the hand over chin emoji.
Mm-hmm.
Before that, he also had the almost like confused face. He had confused
back towards
face
his
emoji.
boss, back towards the AD.
Yes. So you can tell there's trouble in Stillwater, which I don't know how you can have trouble in a place that has the best cheese fries in the state of Oklahoma, the best cheese fries in the earth.
When an AD goes public like that into the coach's business,
right?
He's getting into the coach's business now. That is not a good thing. I don't know if there's a history between these two, and the relationship is frayed in some way. But if it was not, it certainly is going to be now.
Depending on how T. Boone Pickens is, he might have some things to say about what Mr. Holder had to say.
Sports Talk is the sports talk show of Main Street, South Carolina. From the coast to the mountains, we cover it all.
Radio Network, we're brought to you by Founders Federal Credit Union. Receive double CU points on lodging, travel, and dining purchases from May 15th through July 31st when you use your Founders Visa Signature or Platinum Visa credit card. Visit foundersfcu.com/visa for full details. So we were reading the NCAA release yesterday that came about because of the new transfer rule, which eliminates permission to contact process, and also the new redshirt rule. And quoted in the release is somebody of local interest, former football player at Coastal Carolina, Nicholas Clark, who is part of the Division I Student Athlete Advisory Committee on the council that basically helps administer a lot of these types of rule changes and things of that nature. And Nicholas has kind of joined us here on Sports Talk here across the state of South Carolina. Nicholas, Will Pelagic, Phil Kornbluth, thanks so much for coming on. We appreciate you joining us.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
So give us just a sense of what the process was like getting this legislation to come to pass.
Oh, my goodness. Well, I'm a part of the Division I Transfer Working Group, which is a subcommittee under the NCAA Division I Council. And so we've been meeting for about a year. It's about a 19-member group. And this has been a problem in college athletics for a while, the transfer space, with college athletics becoming so competitive now. Student athletes are going from place to place. So I serve as the vice chair of the Student Athlete Advisory Committee. And what we found was, through our research and this experience, having been a football student athlete, so oftentimes student athletes want to transfer, or they're having issues transfer because of the conversation. And that process, that notification, the transfer model that we'll probably dive into, and being able to depart and go to that next school. And so we've been working on this for about a year. And a big part of this was making sure that student athletes would be able to have that conversation with the coach. And there was a lot of voting. But now student athletes will be able to have the ability to transfer to a school and receive a scholarship without even asking for permission from the current school that they're at.
What in your mind was wrong about the old way of doing this?
So oftentimes, student athlete being able to have that conversation with your coach, oftentimes it's looked at in the light, student athletes transfer for athletic reasons, or student athletes may transfer for personal reasons, family reasons, or to get a degree. And we've gotten away from why student athletes transfer. And you always want to be able to have that communication line with your coach, because at the end of the day, being a student athlete is a special thing. And a big part of our charge in Division I SAC is making sure student athletes could go somewhere where not only they could feel comfortable, will be able to go off and do big things. And what's best for them at the end of the day.
Talk with Nicholas Clark, formerly of Coastal Carolina, and a player on the field and off the field in college athletics, part of the committee that got the new rules passed for student athletes moving forward. Can you give us some of the background about the conversations in the meeting room, and what maybe the arguments each way were about? Were there a lot of people who were against moving forward on this? I mean, obviously it passed eventually, but did it take a very strong, pushy argument to get it through?
Well, of course, being a student athlete and a coach, they're weighing two different things with the coach. A lot of times you want to make sure that at the end of the day, your team, you have to have a team to be able to come and produce on the field every season. And so a big part of this, coaches wanted to know, they wanted to be able to manage their rosters when students and be able to indicate, okay, we're going to have the student next fall. We're not sure if he's going to be here or not. But on the student athlete's point of view, it was making sure, you know what, this is not the right fit for me. Oftentimes between 18 and 22, you're going through a lot of things. And student athletes, as I said earlier, they transfer for various reasons. And so you kind of have a class there. So a big part of it is listening. And we were able, of course, with anything that's fast, no one's going to agree 100% of the time. But I guess you can say the biggest part of the argument was being able to see eye to eye these issues. Actually, we can accommodate both parties and be able to come to a consensus of what's best for the student athlete as well as the coach. And this was the first step. And it was actually, I received a lot of feedback from the coaches. We've been working on this for about a year now through conference calls, different meetings, and being able to receive feedback from not only just SAC, the Student Athlete Advisory Committee, and there's 32 other conferences that we receive feedback from. This issue may not affect the Power 5 school as much as it affects a FCS school and vice versa. So being able to see how these things reflect on each campus and being able to compartmentalize these ideas was able to foster a pretty good conversation. And so yesterday, we've definitely taken a step forward. Of course, you're going to have coaches who may not necessarily agree with it, but with it being in now, I feel like it not only puts more accountability on the student athlete, but being able to have that communication with your coach is a lot safer space now in terms of transferring. And so that's just one step of many things that we're going to do this year, coming out of this transfer working group and Division I Student Athlete Advisory Committee.
Do you think with the way the recruiting process is now, it's getting younger and younger? It's starting earlier and earlier for kids in high school, and they're making decisions earlier and earlier. And kids today, your senior year hardly factors into your recruiting process. Now you're signing in December, enrolling in January, blah, blah, blah. My question is, are more mistakes being made both ways? And is that part of the background to all this transferring and future transferring that will take place? Because, guys are rushing into decisions. Teams are rushing into decisions on kids and making offers maybe too soon.
Yes, absolutely, and that plays a great deal. And a lot of the transfer is a big part of a lot of. We want to make, and that's one thing we're working on between the NCAA Student Athlete Experience Committee, and it's slowing down the recruiting process. So student athletes can make rational decisions, the decisions that are best for them. What we learn in these meetings, some sports, and that's the way a lot of sports are going today, becoming a lot more competitive. Coaches reaching out to players early, and also making it be known. Oftentimes you hear, I'm committing to a verbal offer. And then once you put that in there, they start to twist on it, because a verbal offer isn't necessarily binding, but absolutely, that plays a big deal into the transfer space. So slowing down the recruiting process, which is something you'll hear a lot more about it within the next school year, and making sure, helping and educating student athletes on how to make better decisions and keeping coaches accountable. So then you'll get into tampering and coaches talking to players and rules and things of that nature.
We're talking, of course, to Nicholas Smith, former Coastal Carolina football player on the Division I Student Athlete Advisory Committee. Wanted to at least say for Nicholas Clark. I'm sorry, I misspoke on that. I'm sorry about that. Sorry about that, Nicholas. I'm looking at like 5 different things right now between the U.S. Open and my computer screen. But what I did want to ask you though is about the transfer process and obviously the way things have gone through over the course of time. And I know that your group has worked on this, and people keep asking the question as far as whether or not transfers will be able to do so without penalty. Is that something that we're seeing maybe is the next step, or is that something that you don't think will happen?
That's actually, we're currently in the process of working through that. Currently, we're looking at a proposal like the notification of transfer model also comes with a system that allows students to inform her current school about their desire to transfer, and then requires the school to enter the student's name into a national transfer database called the Transfer Portal within 2 business days. And then once the student athlete's name is in the database, other coaches are free to contact the individual. So we're still working on that right now. But as I said earlier, like the step that we passed yesterday was a big step. And so I honestly think some great things will come out of it.
Do you think they'll be able to transfer without having to sit out at some point?
We're still working through that, and we've reached out with feedback to many people looking at the GPA requirement, looking at how many credits they have. So we're really not sure yet. We want to make sure when we do move forward with this, because transfer is a very sensitive topic, we want to make sure we're basing it off the right requirement. I honestly do think potentially in the future, not sure how long or how far, but there may be a possibility for student athletes to transfer. But I know for a fact we're not there yet, but we're working for that, and we're actually taking it into a great consideration. And we've received a lot of feedback on it thus far, and we're looking forward to getting more over these next coming months.
Nicholas Clark, former Coastal Carolina football player, thanks so much for the time. We appreciate it, and continued good work with what you guys are doing over at the D1 level.
I really appreciate it. I appreciate hearing from my South Carolina family. That's a great deal. So I appreciate you all reaching out.
Thank you, Nicholas Clark.
You, Nicholas.
We'll keep in touch as far as those things go as well, Nicholas.
5'11", 155 was his size at Coastal Carolina. Safety.
I kept on typing his name wrong earlier today. I have no idea why. If somehow I thought it was Smith and not Clark.
Here's a potential problem, though. So October 15th, you can put your name into the database.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, what if you're playing for school A, but you put your name in, and now coaches are calling you trying to pull you away during a season?
That'd be crazy. Money Coach next. Updating the leaderboard at the U.S. Open, a four-way tie for the lead at -1. Dustin Johnson shoots 69, as does Russell Henley, Ian Poulter, and Scott Piercy. Those are the four that are tied at the top. Jason Duffner is all alone in fifth place at even par. He is on the last hole right now as it sits. Matthew Pavin is a group that is tied for sixth place at +1. That group includes Justin Rose, Charles Howell, Charlie Hoffman, Henrik Stenson, among others. A couple of the other locals as well are involved, and we'll get into more of that when George Bryan joins us here in about 15 minutes. We'll go over the leaderboard with him at that time. But now the Money Coach comes your way, Corn.
Yes, indeed. A lot of big things happening in the country and in the world, impacted by big dollars. It's time to talk about things of that nature. We welcome in the money coach, Fran Halloran, here to Sports Talk. We've got the World Cup getting underway in Russia, and we've got some big things happening here in the U.S. too, with the betting now underway in New Jersey. The governor of New Jersey, they actually put down the first bets, $20 on the New Jersey Devils to win the Stanley Cup in 2019. So let's talk about World Cup and all the money impacting that country, coming to a country near you in about 10 years or 8 years.
That's right. Well, 2026, 8 years from now, it's going to come to America. By the way, good evening to everyone. Hope everyone is well. Before I get started, though, Phil, I understand that you and I have a common bone to pick with our good friend Kevin Cohen.
What's that?
Seems like Cohen keeps having these events at the Cohen house, and you and I are not getting invited.
I reminded him of that the other day.
Me too. I reminded him of it this morning. So I think we need to have a little talk with him.
Yes.
Might be a good lunch topic one day real soon.
I think I'll stop by the station one morning and cut his tires.
There you go. There you go.
Wow.
So I got a couple of things on my mind tonight. The betting thing is really, really weighing heavy on me, and I want to get to that in a minute. But I also do want to talk about this World Cup. Not just the fact that the World Cup is getting underway in Russia right now, and obviously, you know, this is going to have a significant impact on the Russian economy. It's estimated that Russia spent somewhere, and, you know, words, you got to remember, reports out of Russia always kind of questionable. But it looks like Russia spent somewhere between 14 and 18 billion dollars getting ready for the World Cup. That's a lot of money. And of course, Vladimir Putin says it's all going to be worth it because Russia is going to make $31 billion hosting the World Cup. And I just don't see that's going to be the case. It would be a record beyond anything anyone has ever forecasted for World Cup soccer. But what it really makes me start thinking about is, what can America expect in 8 years? Where will those games be played? Because, you know, it's a North American hosting situation. Games are going to be played in Mexico, in the United States, and in Canada. And the question comes down to where those games are going to be held, because, you know, all these large American cities are going to want these games. They're going to want them. And they're talking about having the finals in New Jersey at the Meadowlands. But don't you think that, you know, Atlanta, who has a really blossoming soccer population, they're going to want a game. Los Angeles is going to want a game. Boston may want a game. Hey, let's not forget Dallas. Jerry Jones is going to want the Jerry Cup played in the Jerry Dome. We all know this.
It's weird.
Each of those cities is looking to gain $400 to $500 million in economic impact. Will, did you have a question or pro? I'm sorry.
No, that's basically the U.S. World Cup committee, basically the ones that were there. They basically are petitioning for 16 different host cities with 23 to select from. The closest one to us is Atlanta. Nashville, Orlando, Miami, and you mentioned a couple others, D.C., Baltimore, New York, New Jersey, Philly. Kansas City's on that list because they have a very big soccer community there. L.A., San Francisco, Dallas, Houston, etc. But the fact is, though, Coach, it's easier for a place like the United States and even North America to host this because they have established
infrastructure.
Not only infrastructure, but they have established stadia. You're not having to build new stadiums.
That's exactly
for the Olympics.
Right.
Think about Sochi and the Olympics in Russia when they had those there. They have facilities that were basically built and never even used.
Or Brazil, where everything is falling apart now, just a few years after the Olympics. No, you're exactly right. When I say infrastructure, I mean the stadiums, obviously the highways, the byways. But what's really mind-blowing is that there are folks who think that the World Cup in North America can generate $14 billion worth of economic impact in all the variety of cities that will host these tournaments and the final in the Meadowlands. That is amazing money. That's $14 billion, $400 to $500 million per host city. That's a ton of money. And it's, I wonder why. I realize there's a lot of politics involved. I get that. but I wonder why the United States has not really gotten a bid before now. I know they've been in the running here, there, and yonder. Occasionally they throw one in. They keep getting put by the wayside. But 2026 is a long time away, and there's an awful lot of garbage that can happen in World Cup soccer, let's put it that way, between now and then.
It'd be nice if
it's going to be quite a boon for the United States, especially.
It'd be nice if the American team could make the World Cup. That would certainly generate more interest in the.
Absolutely would.
In what I happen to consider to be the world's most boring sport. That's just my own personal.
I'm not going to.
Did I wake some people up by saying that?
It's not nice.
Listen, you can force feed soccer to me all you want. It's not going down my throat. Okay.
No, it's
with all due respect to Mark Burson and Phil Savitz and all the great soccer people in our state. Blah.
I like soccer. I like soccer when it's played on the highest level.
It's fun to watch when it's at the highest level. I'll give you that. But
they fake. They fake injuries. They fake getting knocked down.
Paint dry.
Yeah, it's not even. It's wrestling on cleats.
You guys don't need to be talking all this ignorance over here.
Let's talk about the. Let's talk about.
I want to talk about this betting.
Yeah, let's talk about gambling. Something we're really interested in.
Tell you, it really is, and I'll tell you why. I think it's going to hurt college athletics tremendously. I really do. You think about it. There are going to be kids that are going to be tempted to get in bed. There's a bookie in every town.
Come on now. Come on.
Oh, guys, come on. We know this to be true. There are multiple bookies right here in the Midlands of South Carolina. And, guys, all it's going to take is one kid who feels a little bit, ignored or unappreciated. And in football, one kid can turn the tide of a game pretty effectively. And I'm really worried that we're going to see some big money bet, especially on college basketball and college football. And we're going to see some kids who are going to start missing shots, missing tackles. There's not going to be a reason behind it. It's only going to be somebody's getting a payday on the other end. I hate to be a pessimist, but this betting, I understand that people bet. I get it, but legalizing it really worries me. I think it's going to be an opportunity for a lot of really underhanded behavior to take place in college sports.
All right, real quick, of course, it's going to be up to each individual state to decide. Where do you think our legislature will lean on this issue?
Well, it all depends on how big a piece of the pie our legislature is going to get itself.
Yeah.
If they can figure out a way to corner the market like they did with the lottery, all gambling is now done through the state of South Carolina with the state legislature's approval, because the state gets all the money from it. Remember, they outlawed all the video game systems so they could corner the market. If the legislature can figure out a way to make it profitable for themselves in the state, we'll legalize it tomorrow. If not, we're in for a real fight. But I'm really afraid for what could happen, not tomorrow, 15, 20 years down the road when all states have legalized betting.
Plug your business, sir.
888-779-2557, Higgins and Halloran. Gentlemen, thank you for having me. As always, it's a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Same here.
Brandon Halloran, the money coach, joining us here on Sports Talk. I don't know if there's ever been a point where I've disagreed with almost everything the money coach said.
You just did?
I just did.
Well, he's smarter than you.
We have discourse. This is what happens. Well, U.S. Open update with George Bryan next.
These guys, they never sleep. Check them out on the web at SportsTalkSC.com. Now, more of Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network.
A look at the leaderboard once again as play has concluded for the first day at the U.S. Open. As we said, Russell Henley and Dustin Johnson are tied for the lead at 1 under par, along with Scott Piercy and Ian Poulter. They all shot 69 today. They are the only 4 players currently under par. Jason Duffner at even par for the tournament. And some of the other locals that are involved, Billy Haas is at +6, Kyle Stanley at +5. He shot 75 today. Lucas Glover and Kevin Kisner each shot +7. Tiger Woods shoots 78, as does Jordan Spieth. Phil Mickelson 77. Rory McIlroy shoots an 80, Corn.
And we're joined by George Bryan, the third special U.S. Open edition of Bogeys and Birdies around South Carolina. But at Shinnecock Hills, it's mostly bogeys, double bogeys, and triple bogeys. And I think all we need to know, George, is if you look at the field, 24 golfers shot 80 or worse in today's opening round of the U.S. Open. 24 at 80 or above. Makes me feel good.
It makes me feel bad for the best players in the world to be embarrassed like that. And USGA, that's what they enjoy doing. That's the kind of event they like to put on. And quite frankly, to watch what little I did on TV makes me not want to watch a lot more. And it certainly doesn't do anything for my interest in golf.
Really?
I hate to bare my soul, but yeah. I thought it was absolutely ridiculous. And to think about just the posture of a group of people who are that smart to try to humiliate the best in the world is beyond my ability to wrap my head around. So,
well, let me ask you this: is it the setup of the course, the conditions, the wind? What's making it so tough out there today?
Well, I'm not there, so and by the way, I don't care about going there.
Yeah.
Just to be honest. But
Eastern Long Island is beautiful this time of year, George. Come on now.
Hey, I'd like to be in that neighborhood, but I have no interest in playing the golf course. I mean, Phil, when you got Rory McIlroy shooting 10 over par, Jason Day in the same neighborhood, the cut is +10. You basically can't play golf. So it'd be about like going to the street and trying to land your golf ball and stop on a green, and then try to hit it out of your azalea bush out of the rough. So it can be done, but it's just not fun.
So you're saying the hackers out there, like Will, shouldn't take great pleasure in what we're watching here at the Open. You're saying this is a denouncement of golf more than it is a celebration of golf.
Absolutely, and I think the USGA ought to be ashamed of themselves. So now, that's just my opinion, Phil.
Yeah. Well, you're a pro. You have a right to that opinion.
Hey, these men and any player, they work very hard on their game. And, to set up, anybody can build a hard golf course. Anybody can set one up difficult. And I think obviously, hey, the cool thing now is, at least what I'm looking at, there's some skilled players at the top of the leaderboard. And that's the out. And, hey, Dustin Johnson, he's the best in the world right now. And there's the holdout, and that's why George is going to have a lot of people out there going, you're wrong, George, and that's all good. I'm just a sports fan like the rest.
Mm-hmm.
George, my question to you is this. What are the kinds of things, and again, I'm not asking you to play God here, but what are the kinds of things that they can do to alter this? I mean, I know that, they can't make the wind blow. They can't, they can't whip up the wind there on the Peconic Bay, but what exactly is the USGA doing in its power to, harden the conditions, if you will?
Well, the grass is extremely penal, and the greens are very, very firm and fast. So brick hard greens, you could definitely allow the balls to stop and come to rest on the green a little better, and then not the flags. Where you put the flags makes a big difference. And although I can't criticize the flag placements, and I can't tell you, like I could last year at Erin Hill, how bad the grass is. But in short, high grass, my yard's pretty high right now. I don't have to cut it. That's not hard to do. And then I just go play golf in the street. And that's how, I'm not kidding you, that's how it is. The greens are that firm.
Yeah.
Now, not all of them, and you got to hit it in the right place, but, you know, you could soften up the greens a little bit and let the men play golf and have some fun. How about this? Just let them have fun. Enjoy the game. There's not going to – and I heard the comment about, well, if an amateur went to play – well, if an amateur's out there with a 10 handicap today on TV in those conditions, they couldn't finish the golf course. That's how severe it would be. They'd run out of balls.
It looked like the greens, nothing was holding on the greens. Everything was, there was no bite, no grip, as they say, on the greens. And, I mentioned Chambers Bay from a few years ago where the greens were awful. I mean, what kind of, I know you're not there, you're only watching on television. What kind of shape did you see the greens as being? I mean, are they in good shape and they're just set up to be extremely hard?
The one thing that I got to give it to the USGA when the greens are going to be in beautiful condition. Now, even though I wasn't there, however, these greens, I can tell on TV, they're not going to be by Sunday. I can't imagine what they'll be like. They didn't look very good to me on TV at all.
That's what I'm saying.
By Sunday, no telling. The USGA on balance does a great job with the conditioning of the golf course. And, it's just, again, everything set up so difficult that the FUN, fun. Who wants to go play golf when it's set up that way? And I know that I'll put it this way. I haven't heard any comments they've made, but I sure hope they aren't happy about this. I'm certainly not as a sports fan, as a golf fan. So, when I watch an NBA basketball game and I was there, I want to see the guys or players. If I watch women's softball, I like to see them having fun, playing great. I don't like to see them embarrassed.
The negativity aside, it does, I'm sure, warm your heart to know that the DJ is up there at the top, and especially coming off of the way he played this past weekend, trying to do the deed here 2 weeks in a row.
Hey, I'd give him. I've made the comment all week. This guy is on right now, but I've made the comment all spring. He is locked down. He works hard, and Austin, his caddy, working hard, and I would be surprised if he is not in the last group. And he's still my favorite. The guy is on, and he is focused, and he plays up and under the light. He's a big time player.
And a quick shout out to Russell Henley, who now lives at Kiowa Island, and he shares the lead at 1 under. Can his game hold up over the next 3 days?
Absolutely, Russell Henley can win this golf tournament. And his short game, he is not scared. He is one of the best in the condition. When the heat's on, Russell Henley can really play. His short game is spectacular, and it'll be fun. It would be my preference to see he and DJ play in the last group, and it come down to the last hole, and then let the best player win the tournament.
George, before Dabo's golf tournament here next month, I'm going to have to go out with you and totally rework my swing, because Corn says I have to actually play in Dabo's media tournament. I can't just sit on the sidelines.
Some things can't be helped, George.
Well, I tell you what, we'll have to talk about that, and I look forward to it. I tell you what, that's a great event, and I look forward to spending some time and sharpening those skills. That'll be fun.
Well, George knows who is the primo media golfer in this state, don't we, George?
And I tell you what, he grows. I tell you, that's the thing. You have no limit. The one thing about Phil's game is it just grows. It grows on air.
Yes.
So
I am much better at on-air golfer now than I was 30 years ago. Much better.
And it's a wonderful thing.
Thanks so much. We'll talk to you tomorrow. George. That's George Bryan.
I like what George said, man. He's, listen, he's a PGA pro. This is a guy that's played in a major. He's not – he's probably right. I mean, would you want to watch an NBA game where both teams are shooting about 15%, nothing but clanging? No. That's kind of what we're seeing here. Then again, I do kind of like to see him struggle out there.
I like to see him struggle.
Yeah.
Have fun tomorrow.
Yeah, you enjoy your weekend, man. Get it off to an early start.
We'll do.
And we'll see you.
Pro and Phil will take you through the rest of the week tomorrow. We'll talk to you on Sports Talk.